Sunday. Substituting for Forrest Sawyer, here's Barry Seraphin.
Good evening. 2 days before Christmas, a different kind of timetable was underscored in the Persian Gulf today. Defense Secretary Dick Cheney said the clock is ticking toward war every day that Saddam Hussein does not withdraw his forces from Kuwait. The situation, he said, is not improving. As usual, that brought threats from Iraq to crush any attack. ABC's Brian Rooney reports on preparations for the holiday and maybe war.
In Saudi Arabia, there is hope for peace on earth, but more talk about the growing chance of war.
We would be prepared today if we were ordered today to undertake military action.
Every day, U.S. troops are training hard for the prospect that Iraqi troops will still be in Kuwait when the January 15th deadline for their withdrawal has come and gone. The Saudi Arabians have begun air raid drills, preparing the population for the possibility of attack. The hotel where the International Press Corps stays has had 2 shelter drills this week. Increasingly, there is also talk about chemical warfare and what the U.S. would do if Iraq used its chemical arsenal.
The President will have available to him a full spectrum of capabilities. And were Saddam Hussein foolish enough to use weapons of mass destruction, the U.S. response would be absolutely overwhelming and it would be devastating.
Whether the full spectrum includes nuclear weapons, Cheney won't say. In Saudi Arabia, even the limited spectrum of warfare is looking grim, but the troops are keeping their humor.
You see camels walking around, North Star, all that good stuff. You know, you got everything right here where Christmas started, you know, so I guess getting back down to the meaning of Christmas, hey, we're right where it's at.
And because they are right where it's at, this year American troops will be spending Christmas on heightened alert, guarding against the possibility of a holiday attack. Brian Rooney, ABC News, Saudi Arabia.
Alerts are the order of the day in Iraq, too, where the prospect of war has also thrown a pall over holiday observances. Morton Dean is there.
Preparation for Christmas coincided with preparation for war for the 10% of the population that is Christian. Lights on for Christmas, lights off for war. Areas of Baghdad were blacked out tonight as part of a civil defense drill. It was a weekend of contrasts. Today, the new Iraqi defense minister saying he's ready to stop any aggression and scorch the earth under the feet of U.S. forces in Saudi Arabia. And some Iraqi children were talking tough while demonstrating at the U.S. Embassy yesterday. We sacrifice our souls and our blood for you, Saddam, they said. Some children, though, appear to be more interested in Santa than Saddam at a big Christmas party hosted by a Baghdad hotel last night. There are many reminders here that it's 2 days till Christmas and 23 days till the UN deadline for Iraq to get out of Kuwait. Morton Dean, ABC News, Baghdad.
Aboard the USS Saratoga today, there was an emotional memorial service for the 20 sailors and 1 petty officer who drowned Friday night in Haifa Bay. And there were new questions about what actually caused the ferry boat they were traveling in to capsize. The latest from ABC's Dean Reynolds in Israel.
In the waters of the Mediterranean, off the coast of Israel, the men of the USS Saratoga stood in quiet disbelief, still groping for some way to explain the loss of 21 friends.
May the angels lead them into paradise. May the martyrs welcome them and take them to the new and eternal Jerusalem.
They remembered the young men from places like Leslie, Georgia, Hubbard, Oregon, Union, Iowa, and North Braddock, Pennsylvania.
Patriotic, loyal. They died in the service of their country, many miles from home, doing what they had volunteered to do.
Their commanders said the worst U.S. military accident since Operation Desert Shield started 4 months ago will not deter them from their mission. But 2 critical points about the accident remain at issue. While Israeli officials say a large wave swamped the ferry, survivors say it had been taking on water well before it capsized. And the survivors denied the Israeli version that too many sailors had gathered at one end. So, on this eve of Christmas Eve, the crew of the Saratoga and the families of the victims are left with nagging questions and few answers. Dean Reynolds, ABC News, Tel Aviv.
Coming up, the big chill that's holding most of the country in its frigid grip. And later in this broadcast, making Christmas music the old-fashioned way.